on the channel, it's the return of the Kyle Peterson Top 10, and today we do a countdown for the common man as we count down my top 10 favorite Dusty Rhodes figures of all time.
The spirit of Ultimate Warrior will run forever!
Welcome everyone, Kyle here, and welcome back to the channel for another edition of the Kyle Peterson Top 10. As every single Thursday here on this very YouTube channel, we're counting down usually the top 5 favorites of something, but in this case, for 27,000 subscribers, we're doing the top 10. And we got the roads to the top, the roads to WrestleMania going on right now. And I figured no better time to do a top 10 Dusty Rhodes in honor of Cody headlining WrestleMania. And then, of course, Dusty Rhodes, one of the all-time great performers in professional wrestling, definitely deserves a top 10 countdown. And, of course, we're going to do this top 10 countdown like we do all the other ones here on the channel. We're going to start at number 10, work our way to number 1. And remember, this is my list. Make sure you put your list in the comments down below. And make sure you do put them in order. That is the fun part. That is the challenge. That's the hard part, really, at the end of the day. So without further ado, let's get after it. Let's kick it off at number 10. We start off the top 10 Dusty Rhodes figures of all time at, you guessed it, number 10. And number 10 comes to us from possibly the greatest wrestling line of all time. It's arguably debatable, of course, as we do know. But coming in at number 10 comes to us from Jakks Classic Superstars. It comes to us as the 1 of 3,000 Dusty Rhodes Polka Dot exclusive. Now, it's interesting, the two sides of the coin for Dusty Rhodes' career is there is a whole group of fans that know Dusty just as Polka Dot Dusty. I was of an age where I got a little bit of the tail end of his NWA Blood and Guts WCW. I guess it technically wasn't WCW yet then, but I got a little bit of that, and then I saw him morph into the common man, Dusty Rhodes, and all of his polka dot glory with sweet, sweet Sapphire by his side, and I loved Dusty Rhodes back then. It was just such one of those things, and as a young wrestling fan, really the first time coming across the guy, because a lot of the guys looked like the Rick Rudes, the Hulk Hogans, the Mr. Wonderfuls. We had a lot of chiseled physiques, things like that. Dusty definitely broke that mold, especially in the WWE, where they had a lot of big men, of course, but Dusty was just a little bit different. And talk about making a gimmick work, that's what he did with the common man here. So the Polka Dot Dusty, very iconic, and still to this day, when I see people wear polka dot outfits, polka dot stuff, I always think of it as a Dusty Rhodes tribute. So it's went a long way for polka dots as well, just not Dusty's career. A lot of people would say not his best time, but an enjoyable time for me, and I like it a lot more in retrospect than I maybe did at the time even. Those promos, building up the character, things like that. Quite the wild time. So Polka Dot Dusty always has a special place in my heart, and we'll be talking about that more in this very video, of course. But the 1 of 3,000 Jakks Class Superstars, a very, very good look at Dusty Rhodes. And interesting, a little bit of a head scratcher is I would have assumed this would have been in the regular Classic Superstars line and not an exclusive, and maybe one of the more Cowboy Dusties to be the exclusive, but it is what it is. I'm just glad we did get a polka dot representation in the Jakks Classic Superstars line. You got soft goods, you got a bandana, you got Big Boss Man's nightstick. He's ready to dance in the ring with Sweet Sweet Sapphire. He's ready to go. And this Dusty is pretty cool at the end of the day, and then especially the packaging for this one being polka dot inspired, a little bit special there as well. So this one comes in at number 10 on my top 10 Dusty Rhodes figures of all time. The number 9 spot, we take our attention over to Mattel, the Elite line, of course. And this time, we go to the Target exclusive WCW Ring Dusty Rhodes. So an exclusive Dusty Rhodes, a little bit harder to find, a little bit rarer, and I gotta be honest, a little bit more plain Jane. And I did dress this one up a little bit with a soft good shirt. Got the old son of a plumber shirt, which really works well on this one. But it is classic Dusty Rhodes. Not the greatest head sculpt ever, but you get down to the cowboy boots, the knee pads, the elbow pads. It is Dusty at the end of the day. I think there's no denying this is Dusty Rhodes. But it'd be a really cool special pack. First being a Target exclusive, as I said, but then also getting that WCW ring with him. As I think when most people think of Dusty, I guess I say most people, I'm not sure. I guess sound off in the comments. When you think of Dusty Rhodes, do you think him as NWA, WCW? do you think of him as WWF, WWE? I guess where do you think of him? And I guess it all depends where you came into the fandom. Heck, you could think of him as an ECW guy. Who knows? But this one, very cool for what it represents. Very cool with the ring as the accessory to Dusty. I think that was his accessory there, was the ring. But all around, a good Dusty Rhodes figure. Not Mattel's best likeness for Dusty Rhodes, but still passable, still good, and that's why it comes in at number 9. We've come to the number 8 spot in the countdown, and once again, we go back to Jakks Classic Superstars. We go all the way back to Jakks Classic Superstars Series 10 for old Cowboy Dusty Rhodes. So I kind of assume this one's about mid-early 80s Dusty Rhodes here. You got the white cowboy hat going on, the black tights, red painted on knee pads. You got the cowboy boots, of course. Got the big gold belt. Got to have that with old Dusty here. A good Dusty. Say what you want. I know a lot of people do not like Jakks figures, and I think part of it is where did you grow up? Where did you come into? What did you collect at the time? If it's before your time, I could see you saying, not for me. I understand that. But at the time, talk about a little bit of a game changer here with this Dusty Rhodes. Absolutely fabulous head sculpt. I still do, to this day, put a lot of Jakks head sculpts above the Mattel counterpoints. That shouldn't happen with all the constant learnings, constant improvements, and then time passing. But Jakks did nail some head sculpts back in the day, and this Dusty Rhodes is an absolutely fabulous one. Down to the curls in the hair, but also what I always say about these, the deepness. You got to look a little bit tighter into the figure here. You look into the head, you look into the forehead, and you got the blade scars sculpted in here on Dusty Rhodes. Of course, Dusty always had the blade scars going on. Not always in his action figures, but Jakks did do that very well. Looking really good. And for an early 80s, mid-80s Dusty Rhodes, it doesn't get too much better than this in the action figure game right now. So I love this Jakks Classic Superstar Series 10 figure so much. It came in at number 8 in our top 10 countdown. All right, the number 7 pick in our top 10 countdown. Once again, we go to Jakks Classic Superstars. This time we go to Jakks Classic Superstars Series 13 for Dusty Rhodes, old Outlaw Dusty Rhodes. I guess you could classify this as maybe late 60s, if not 70s Dusty Rhodes is what this would be. Part of the West Texas Outlaws, of course, with Dick Murdoch back in the day. We never did get a Dick Murdoch to match this. But, of course, Dusty Rhodes, you always get the one we just saw before, the cowboy hat wearing Dusty of, the 80s. You get the polka dot Dusty, but rarely, if ever, and I believe this is the only real example here of an early Dusty, a little bit skinnier, a little bit more dressed up, got the stars on his boots, got the nice vest going on, of course, the cowboy hat, got the baby kind of curled hair there and the baby face a little bit. And then as I did talk about with Jakks, the beautiful blade scars into the forehead, the attention to detail there, absolutely fabulous. So this Dusty just feels different than everything else on the countdown here. Whether that be good or bad, I guess that's for your interpretation. But looking really nice. Always a special one. And I remember when this was first announced back in the day, I remember saying, wow, I can't believe we're getting a Dusty that's not polka dot. It just felt so different at the time. Still very different in this day and age. Just very cool, special moment in time figure, and something totally different than all the other Dusty Rhodes from all the other companies that we've received. So very cool, this Jakks Class Superstars Series 13. That's why it's coming in at number 7 on my top 10 countdown. Okay, we've hit the number 6 spot in our top 10 Dusty Rhodes countdown, and for the number 6 spot, once again, we go back to Mattel. We go to the Mattel Elite line, and we go to Dusty Rhodes in all of his polka dot glory, the very first Mattel Dusty Rhodes figures, and of course the Legends line here. It was also part of the Legends Kmart exclusive line, basically a little bit of not even a repaint, just basically a re-release with a little Hall of Fame plaque that was made out of paper, so not a whole lot different, but it was a Kmart one depending what you bought it, and they were posed differently in the package. But this was the first Dusty Rhodes from Mattel. A good first offering, and of course the polka dots, one of his most iconic, and I guess his only kind of gear he wore in the WWF back in his initial run over there in the 80s, of course. But a beautiful looking Dusty Rhodes, always held up. You knew who this one was from the get-go, and it really did start that Legends line out with some excitement as well, saying, oh man, we're getting some of these big heavy hitters over the years, and we're getting Dusty Rhodes in there. Of course, you get soft goods with him here. Does have a bandana, which I cannot find, is driving me absolutely crazy. I've been going through my fodder piles, things like that, so I gotta track down his bandana. Hopefully I don't have to buy one on the aftermarket, but I know I have it somewhere. Just can't find it. It's driving me absolutely crazy. But a good looking Dusty, a serviceable looking Dusty. There's been improvements since, and we're going to talk about those in the countdown here. But for what we got right here and where it came in, Coming in at number 6, Dusty Rhodes Mattel Legends. All right, we've come to the halfway point in our Dusty Rhodes countdown. We've hit the number 5 spot. Do you got your list together? Put in the comments down below, and of course, make sure you subscribe to this very YouTube channel, as every single Thursday we're counting down top 5s, top 10s of all kinds of different stuff, and we got videos every single day, as you guys probably know by now. But coming in at number 5, once again, we go back to the Mattel Elite line. We go all the way to Elite Series 83 for Dusty Rhodes. Obviously, it is his countdown, but a very cool Dusty Rhodes, and very cool because of all the accessories with this one. You get the poncho, the red and black polka dot poncho. You get the cowboy hat with the little chicken claw foot on the end. I believe this was from his Survivor Series. Was it 89, 90 appearance? Something like that. But it was a one-and-done outfit, only worn one time, but that's the beauty of Mattel, is they do give us some of these deep cuts. They are not scared to give us deep cuts. And when you're playing with a guy like Dusty Rhodes, you got the polka dots, you got the old cowboy look. It's tough to find something in the middle and something that hasn't really been done. And I think the Mattel team did a great job here, giving us a deep cut version of Dusty Rhodes, a one-off Dusty Rhodes, but bringing it to action in figure form. So it definitely stands out in a sea of Dusty Rhodes figures for sure. Looking really, really good. The biggest weakness on this one is probably the head sculpt, same as the ring one we talked about a little bit earlier. But still a fabulous figure, and one that really does pop on the shelf. So much, in fact, it came in at number 5. Getting closer and closer to the end of the list, we're at the number 4 spot, and the number 4 spot, once again, belongs to Mattel. And this is the latest Dusty Rhodes figure, as of filming, to be released in the Mattel Elite line. What is it? It is the Mattel WrestleMania Hollywood Elite line, Dusty Rhodes. Of course, this, as of filming right now, should be hitting store shelves fairly soon, so be on the lookout for this one, or head over to Ringside Collectibles, use discount code Kyle, save yourself 10%. But this could be the most controversial one on this countdown, possibly, as it seems like you either love it or hate it with this figure, and I absolutely do love it. A lot of people say that doesn't look anything like Dusty Rhodes, doesn't look like him at all. Well, I think it does. And if you go back to this time of the polka dots, some of the crazy expressions Dusty Rhodes would do in the ring and in his promos, I feel they nailed this look. And it's not really far off from the Hasbro Dusty Rhodes figure of yesteryear, if you remember that one too. So a very, very good one. And I like that we got a new sculpt for Dusty Rhodes. We got some differences here. And we also got some differences in the figure. Of course, the polka dots, they have played that hit many a times, as we do know. But this is a new take on it with the yellow shirt, soft goods, of course. Then you get, of course, the double-jointed pinless elbows. You know they're playing all the hits right there. The interchangeable hands here for Dusty. It makes a Dusty that feels like something we've had before feel entirely different with all those new technology upgrades, a new head, and a new shirt. Playing all the hits here for this Dusty Rhodes. I really, really do like this one. And like I said, a lot of people don't like it, but I think it's you're either on one side or the other. Not a lot of people in the middle. But for me, I absolutely love this Dusty Rhodes figure. I love the head sculpt. It's coming in at number 4. We're down to the final 3, and the number 3 spot in our Dusty Rhodes countdown goes to one of my favorite lines of all time, of course, Jack's Ruthless Aggression style. But this one is a bit of a deep cut, and this is probably the sleeper figure of this list. I gotta imagine a lot of people maybe don't know the existence of this figure, but this is an absolute sleeper figure. Absolutely love this one. So much, in fact, it's number 3 on my list as we go to Adrenaline Series 29, tag teamed up with his son, Cody Rhodes. We've got Dusty Rhodes, and this is a modern take on Dusty Rhodes at the time. Of course, basically retired, working behind the scenes, but came out of retirement, teamed with Cody, teamed with Goldust. I believe they faced the Shield even at one time after this, but Dusty would kind of come out every once in a while, make his face, make his presence known every once in a while, and it looks really good, and I love this as a modern take on Dusty at the time. You could also move this into your ECW collection. This could be your Dusty Rhodes from ECW, fighting against Steve Corino and things like that. Just a very cool representation and something very different from all the other Dusty Rhodes figures on this countdown. You get the cowbell, which is so brought to life by Dusty in the wrestling. We always think of the cowbell and the bull rope, him bringing that into matches, bull rope matches, things like that. Beautiful Dusty head sculpt. Once again, you get the blade scars there, the beautiful blonde hair. Got his kind of street fight gear going on. And we always do business picked up. Still to this day, if I go to an indie show, and I go to a lot of indie wrestling shows throughout the state, things things like that. And there's a lot of street fight matches. And whenever I see a street fight match, I always say, okay, what are they coming out? That's how I'm going to take this street fight match seriously. If they come out in their regular gear, I'm just like, what is this? But a guy like Dusty, you know a street fight was for real. He'd come out in a Waylon Jennings shirt. He'd come out in the blue jeans with the knee pad over the blue jeans. He'd have his regular cowboy boots on. He was ready to go, and that's what this symbolizes as well. This is Dusty like, hey, I'm here to fight. I'm not here for a proper wrestling match. I'm here for a street fight, a Texas death match, whatever you want to call it. Just fabulous, fabulous, and this is a figure that doesn't get the due I think it's deserved in the pantheon of Dusty Rhodes figures. So coming in at number 3 for me, Adrenaline Series 29 from Jax. Down to the final 2, and at number 2, you knew this had to be on the list somewhere. As a child of the 80s, and many of you guys probably watching a child of the 80s, maybe early 90s, you had to have this one in your collection. And little did I know is this one was a little bit more hard to find than some of the other ones from the Hasbro WWF line back in the day, as we got the old polka dot Dusty Rhodes. And I remember clear as day going to my Toys R Us, just picking him off the shelf, thinking nothing of it. But a lot of people struggled with this one, as he was one of the harder ones to find back in the day. I just never realized it. There was no internet. You were a little kid. That's the way it went. But this Dusty, for a whole generation and probably a couple generations, this was the first Dusty Rhodes figure they ever had. Was this the first Dusty Rhodes figure ever? I don't believe he had a Remco. He might have had some of those Japan ones, I think, back in the day as well. But as far as American release, this very quite possibly could be his first ever release, and a lot of kids probably had this one growing up, or at least they knew of this figure. And it's Dusty in all of his polka dot glory, of course, at the time. And I talked about that Mattel Elite that is a little bit on the fence for some people. The head sculpt looks just like that. It's almost like an homage to the Hasbro one, so makes that one even cooler. But as far as Dusty Rhodes, as far as my playing days with action figures back in the day, this one was the top of the heap for me. A lot of good battles with old Dusty against Boss Man, Akeem, some of the other ones, of course, in your Hasbro Fig Fed in your playing days. So an iconic one to a whole generation, and then some. Dusty Rhodes, Hasbro, coming in at number 2. All right, we've come to the end of the top 10 Dusty Rhodes countdown. You got your list together? Make sure you put it in the comments down below. Of course, like this video if you made it this far. Give the old Hacksaw Jim Duggan thumbs up. And then don't forget to subscribe to this very YouTube channel. As you guys know, we got videos every single day, including top 5, top 10 lists every single Thursday. And this top 10 is in honor of the 27,000 subscribers here on the YouTube channel. Next up, we turn our attention to 28. Who will we do? Well, we'll have to see, but we got to get there first. So make sure you do subscribe to this very YouTube channel. So now here we are at number 1 in our Dusty Rhodes countdown. I'm not sure if this will be number 1 on a lot of people's list. I got to think it will be in the top 10 either way. And this one, we go once again to Mattel. We go to Elite Series 63. We get old Dusty Rhodes here. And now, why is this number 1? Is this the most iconic year of Dusty Rhodes? I guess it depends who you ask here. But what I like about this one is it's the blood and guts WCW, or I guess I should say NWA Dusty Rhodes to a T to me. You got the baseball cap going on there. You know, it might have a Conoco station, something like that. Something for the working man. Obviously, for this figure, they couldn't put anything on it. But you got the baseball cap. You got the shades. You got the Dusty shirt, the classic Dusty shirt. And then, of course, you got the big gold title belt. And you got Dusty looking how he looked back there in the NWA time frame. Running hard, running fast, running free like a young Rio at the time. I absolutely love this Dusty, though, because in hindsight, throughout my career of watching wrestling, starting as a little boy and about, I don't know, shortly after WrestleMania 3 is when I began watching, never stopping since then. Of course, I talked about it earlier. I first saw Dusty Rhodes at the tail end of his NWA stuff right before he went into WWF at the time. And then, of course, back from there, back to WCW, ECW, back to the WWF, all that. But going back and studying in high school, tape trading was a big thing. I was tape trading all over the world. Getting videos, things like that. Then the WWE Network coming along, making it a lot easier. Then things like YouTube. Going back at as much Dusty Rhodes stuff as I've seen over the many years of consuming wrestling, this is what I've honed into when I close my eyes and I lay my head down at night before I go to sleep and I think of old Dusty Rhodes. This is what comes to mind. You ask little 9-year-old Kyle, it might have been Polka Dot Dusty, but all these years later, this is where I've come. This is what Dusty Rhodes looks like to me when I close my eyes and I think about him. It's perfectly put together in Elite 63 from Mattel. A very, very cool looking figure, a very good looking figure, and that's why it's number 1 on my top 10 list. So there it is. You got your list. Make sure you put it down below. Like I said, make sure you do put it in order. Don't forget about the Patreon for early access to videos like this, early access to all the other videos, bonus content, exclusive content, Q&As, and best of all, you do support the channel. You can also support the channel at ProWrestlingTees.com. Search Kyle Peterson, and then don't forget to hit me up and follow along on social media. SirPaul64 on Twitter, Instagram, _Kyle_Peterson. So for the top 10 Dusty Rhodes figures of all time, I am Kyle. See you guys all real soon.